Spin it again.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena.
You know what, I've heard people call, and I kind of like it, the era that we're in, the post-truth kind of era.
And lately there's been a lot of coverage in the real news about the growing and booming business of creating fake news.
Well, I don't know, maybe he was watching CNN fake news. What do you think?
You are fake news. Sir. Go ahead.
Let us return to the fight. This battle is far from over.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Real News in this morning time. It is Juneteenth in the morning right now, 9:01 as far as my clock is telling me. My name is Mr. Henry. David Sean Thompson sitting over there beside me. He's kind of flying like a ninja all show long. You never really know where he's coming from. I mean, you kind of do, because he's going to be in this area somewhere. A lot of things are going to be in this area somewhere all show long. Hey, realnewsradio.live, realnewsradio.live. As we're going to keep up with all the real news related stuff. We have a little bit of swag there to sell if you want. I always drink out of my, not always, but from time to time, I drink out of my nice little tumbler. It's got this cool little tumbler top on the top of it. Cool stuff over there. If you want to support the cause, let us know that you support the cause. Hey, man, really awesome of all y'all to join us again. Love the community that we're building here. Got a lot of Tennessee bill updates. We have some other stuff going on. DACA remains. Big headlines for today. Also, going to go ahead and make this just right now. Open lines Friday. Give us a call, 615-807-0619. I don't even have that Google Voice number up. I better pull that up while we're talking about that. But it's 615-807-0619. As I'm saying that, give us a call. Let us know your opinion on any of these topics that we're talking about.
Call this number. It's disconnected, but...
That's right. Nobody's going to pick it up.
It'll
call
work.
it. But yeah, that's right. 615-807-0619. Open lines Friday. Let us know what you're thinking about how you're doing. And if it's off topic for anything that we're covering, don't even care, man. Honestly, don't even care. I really just want to know where you're at, how you're feeling. My wife and I were talking yesterday quite a bit about, like, people just sort of entered a slumber, right? We've sort of entered a phase of becoming so jaded by everything right now. And none of it makes sense anymore, that I think people are just giving up entirely, which, frankly speaking, I do not think is a good place to be at all. I would much rather people be severely uncomfortable, because in that uncomfortability, it's easier to move. People don't like being uncomfortable, so they will grow to get out of that uncomfortable stance. Just my opinion. Hey, David Sean Thompson. Say what, buddy? Oh, wait. No, sorry. I don't know if they heard that.
Oh,
sorry.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, good morning, everybody. Yeah, I don't know what Grant was talking about. Yeah, be uncomfortable. That's what we want. We want you to be. But also, at the same time, enjoy yourself, because we're having a great time. Hey, Grant, another big thing today, starting at noon, we're going to be playing the first installment of The Veteran Next Door. It's historical documentary style radio. Yeah. It's not a video, okay? It's radio theater. You just put on some nice headphones and sit back and sip your tea and relax. It's going to be a good time. And in fact, this episode, if you're from East Tennessee, you're going to love it. This episode, he's just going to be talking about East Tennessee famous war heroes that you'll know the name of, people that the streets are named after, buildings are named after, bridges are named after. It's going to be really cool, very East Tennessee centric, and hope you all tune in for that at noon today. It's going to be so awesome. So
that's going to be fantastic, man. I really do like that. I really do like, too, that we're building out the programming here, man, on Real News. We got our eyes open. Shine, full credit to him for snagging that one. We got our eyes open for other things we can grow this community out in, other material we can bring your way. We're, thinking about getting some of our stronger libertarian friends in here as well. I mean, I don't know, man. We're just shaking it up a little bit. Shaking it up. Again, Open Lines Friday, trying to keep it light and breezy, but at the same time, Tennessee updates, man. We got some major bills. Yesterday was the last day of session. As far as I know, quote me on that a little bit. But something could change because it's Tennessee legislature, right? But as far as I know, yesterday was the last day of session. Pretty sure everybody else is getting that same amount of news. We had some major bills come through. And then, unfortunately, I can't give the entirety of the updates yet. I haven't spoken to the rest of our team at Americans for Prosperity or other people across the state as to what everything has been delivered. But I can tell y'all this much. The early word coming through right now is that everything that we've asked for y'all's help with, again, greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment right now, I'm thanking y'all. Everything that we ask for y'all's help with as it pertains to healthcare, a lot of the stuff that we asked for y'all's help with as it pertains to criminal justice reform and several other things all came through as major wins for us last night. I can't tell y'all how cool that is, man. We got word that certificate of need reform is happening. We got word that telemedicine reform is happening. We got word yesterday that the drug-free school zone bill, that's happening. I still have to check up on some of these civil asset forfeiture related things, victim restitution related thing. I still have to check up on that, but we got some major wins yesterday. So again, on Monday's show, I'll fill in all the details. Just let it be known right now that a lot of the stuff, most of the stuff that we asked for y'all's help with on this legislative session, I'm telling y'all, cannot thank you enough for the amount of time that y'all spend hitting calls for us, hitting those links every single day in the show notes or the letters to legislators. That stuff definitely, absolutely works. When you're signing those pledges, when you're sending out to your friends, when you're doing all these things, hey, man, this is the stuff. This is the victory laps. This is the winning party right now. It's good stuff, man. Fantastic stuff. Sean, anything you want to add to that before I go straight to the heartbeat bill from Governor? It's a major issue that was coming up yesterday.
No, except I'm proud of everybody. I mean, like, and I don't know. For me, it's really nice because I've worked on a lot of political stuff in my life, but it's been very few times when I've been able to watch something go from like an activism thing to passing the legislature. That hasn't been the most, I don't know. Before I got involved with AFP, it was only 2 or 3 things. And I think what will be going over on Monday is going to be a lot more than 2 or 3 things. And they're all really beneficial, and look forward to hearing about that. So, and thanks to everybody who helped, because most of you listening did. So appreciate that.
And stay tuned to Real News here as well, because we will be setting up over the weekend. Sean and I will be contacting and setting up House members and senators as well to get on this program on AFP as well, to just give updates as to what their bills will, what was passed, how it's going to change, what it looks like going forward, all of that stuff. Hey, realnewsradio.live, open lines Friday, 615-807-0619. And I say that because somebody might want to call and save us from this next topic, because it's going to get a little bit weird. I say get a little bit weird because this topic in particular is one that is unfortunately going to cause pro-life individuals to question a pro-life bill that was passed yesterday. And I know that sounds very, very strange. It does. Sean, you remember, like, it was actually about last year, I think, or maybe even 2 years back, but I'm pretty sure it was just last year. One of these heartbeat bills, Governor Lee's heartbeat bill, came through the legislature again. And some of the local representatives out there in the East Tennessee area actually took a lot of guff. Lafferty and Dunn, Representative Lafferty and Representative Dunn, they took a lot of guff for voting no on the heartbeat bill last year as well. Now, I haven't checked their vote to see what they did this time around. But I can read a post from Representative Zachary, and I should have linked to his Facebook to let y'all know where I was actually getting the source material from. But Representative Zachary has this post. He says, "This morning, your Tennessee House of Representatives passed the most comprehensive pro-life legislation in the nation. We now need the Senate to pass this afternoon." Yeah, Daniel's kind of already picking up on it a little bit. He already said in Facebook, fundraising season has started for Tennessee legislators. It's a little bit of what's going on here. My personal opinion, not speaking on behalf of anybody else. I'm not even speaking on behalf of Shine on this one, man. This is just me speaking. Representative Zachary, sorry, go ahead, Shine, I heard you. Here's Representative Zachary's post. He says, the highlights, this bill prohibits an abortion after the heartbeat is detected, requires an ultrasound prior to an abortion, prohibits an abortion for reasons of sex, race, or disability. Severability clause is included. Now, importantly, it says that the bill was drafted to withstand legal challenges it faces if passed in the Senate. We're on the verge of the biggest win for life in the nation. Now, I think everybody would tend to agree, bias or otherwise, that last statement might be a slight oversell, but whatever. It is what it is. He's trying to get the bill out there. He's trying to get it passed to understand what's going on. Now, I'm covering this so hard today just to put it in context that there are the vast majority of pro-life organizations in this state do not support this bill. And I'm assuming that some of y'all are going to come across some of that coverage this afternoon and think to yourself, what in the world is happening? I don't understand the disconnect. Most people don't understand the disconnect. Why would you? How could you? If Governor Lee's passing a heartbeat bill that arguably looks like it's a major a major movement for the pro-life community. And in some part, I think it might be, if you don't understand the context, how is it every other pro-life group out there doesn't understand? Well, it all comes down to that last statement that was on Representative Zachary's post here, saying the bill was drafted to withstand legal challenges it will face if passed by the Senate. What happened last year? The same bill came up, and several representatives, again, check me on the Lafferty and Dunn vote, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. Lafferty and Dunn voted no for this bill. And part of their reasoning was, look, y'all, if this is going to fail, which it's inevitably bound to do so, let's be for real, if this is going to fail in the federal court system, why don't we swing for the fences, kick it all the way to the Supreme Court? I don't want to waste a bunch of taxpayer money defending this bill against whoever might take it to court just for it to fail. If we know it's going to fail, do what Alabama did, man. Go swing for the fences. Hit it directly where it counts in the 9th and the 14th Amendment to try and get that power away from a national bureaucrat and put it back into the hands of Tennesseans. Rely upon the 10th Amendment if you want to, man. Daniel said they voted present. That makes a little bit more sense, right? Now, here's what a pro-life group such as Family Action Council of Tennessee had to say about this particular bill.
Hey, Grant, can I throw something out there real quick as a disclaimer? Because we had just to make sure there's no confusion, because we just talked about bills that we worked on, that we had victories on.
Good point, yeah.
Big line here. We had nothing to do with this bill. Nothing to do with it. We didn't talk to anybody about it. We didn't talk to any of you about it. This is strictly news coverage right here. So just wanted to point that out to everybody, because it may have been unclear. I think most of y'all are smart enough to know, but disclaimers are good on really sensitive topics like this one. So,
yeah, man. No, thank you so much. That is a great point of line of delineation to draw. AFP had nothing to do with this. Clearly, we don't touch any issues like this. Sean and I actually had nothing to do with this as well.
And just as important, you and I had nothing to do with this on our personal time or anything like that.
Exactly. It's just a major story that was coming out of coverage yesterday, and well, we'll continue on, but. Pro-life groups like Family Action Council of Tennessee, this is what they had to say about it, saying that the Tennessee House just passed Governor Lee's laddered abortion bill that asks federal courts at which point from 6 weeks to 24 weeks the state can prohibit abortion. Now, that laddered abortion bill does take in that sense. Anything after 5 weeks of a certain segmented portion of the ladder, which portion of that is okay? Which portion of that goes against Casey's language of an undue burden on a female? Now, unfortunately, fact continues by saying that several key legal issues were not discussed. For example, and among other things, no discussion was had of the Supreme Court of the United States rejection in 2016 of severability clauses to shield abortion laws from facial challenges to their constitutionality, meaning that this is highly likely to fail on its face. Part of the selling point of this is that it had a severability clause. If you lose one portion, the rest of it remains. Apparently, the Supreme Court in 2016 has already said, well, that doesn't matter. The severability clause cannot apply to the rest of it, meaning if you cut one portion off of it, the rest of it's going to fail. In other words, all the laddered steps could fall at once if any one of them violates Roe v. Wade or Planned Parenthood versus Casey. Roe v. Wade is the original decision in 72. Planned Parenthood versus Casey is the actual legal precedent that we're operating off of now. It kind of changed the legal language as it pertains to Roe. Now, the Senate still had not scheduled the Senate version of the bill for floor debate. And people, communities like Family Action Council of Tennessee, which is basically all they work on, is just issues related like this. They were hoping that it did not go to the Senate. Again, this is why I'm bringing up and spending the first portion of the show on this, because you will see pro-life organizations in the state did not like this version of the bill. Now, they went on to say at midnight, the Senate suspended the rules to immediately take up the governor's laddered abortion bill. They suspended the rules to immediately take up the governor's laddered abortion bill. It passed at 12:35 a.m. by a vote of 23-4. After Senate told the public that the bill would not be considered, it did consider it anyway. After the Senate told the public that it would not be considered this session around, it did actually bring it up anyways after they suspended the rules. You're starting getting a little bit of a sense now as to why some of these pro-life organizations, aside from the constitutionality of it, it seems in a slight sense, I'm going to make a hard stance here, and I can't even apologize for it. Truth is just truth. That's one of the themes of the show today. Truth is just truth. It's grandstanding, man. It's grandstanding. It is what it is. That's my opinion, but it's the absolute truth of what's happening here. And I have to get this out because y'all are going to see it. They went on to say, working without notice in the public after midnight, senators were able to avoid answering any hard questions from the pro-life community about the legal soundness of the laddered approach. Interesting that no one in the pro-life organization in Tennessee and no pro-life or public interest legal organization in the nation has supported a laddered approach in this bill. Not a single one. Family Action Council of Tennessee wishes these people the best of luck in the court system. So now you have the basic breakdown. I don't think we need to spend much more time on it than that. I just wanted people to be aware, Shine, of you are going to hear coverage about this today. You are going to see the pro-life organizations were not for this decision. It was going to confuse everyone. And the basic thing, what this gets down to is like, look, man, when it comes to a decision like this, staying on the side of truth, staying on the side of understanding that we don't want to waste taxpayer dollars for going towards something that's inevitably bound to fail. And there was a better option on the table, just so everyone realizes this. It's not like this was the only bill they could have voted for. There was another bill on the table. Anyways, that is what it is. I think
it is what it is. Let me. You mind if I ask you some questions, Mr. Henry?
Yeah,
so you kind of gave us a 30,000-foot view, and like you spent more time on this than I did, so that's why I'm asking you questions. These aren't like fake questions; these are like real questions from Shine for Grant. So is everything that and I know this is kind of a dumb question, but is everything Representative Zachary said about the bill that was passed taken up by the Senate? Is that what the completed bill has in it, the stuff that Jason Zachary mentioned?
It does, yeah.
Okay. And do you expect the governor to sign this bill?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It was part of his package, yeah.
So what Jason Zachary, Representative Zachary, put in his post, that we have every indication that will become law very soon, right?
That part I would say no to.
Okay, see, that's my question here. No, that's the question is if that's all true and the Senate's going to sign the same thing the House did and the governor's going to sign it, is there going to be a span of time where that's law before it's challenged in court? Will it be law tomorrow or a law next week? And then are you saying that it won't be law in a year or in 2 years when it goes to the court system? That's my... Because you're kind of saying like it's not going to hold up in court or whatever, but that's fine. That's kind of a 30,000-foot view. But the practical view, is this stuff going to be law in just a second? At least for a little bit.
The direct answer to that is, honestly, it just depends on which groups are going to take this up and how quickly they're going to issue an injunction back against it. The quick answer to your question, I would think, is this might be law for a very short period of time. Now, I don't know if that's 24 hours, 24 days, or 24 months. But I will say it's probably on the far shorter time of that. So it's probably, you're looking, I don't know, a couple days, couple weeks, something, maybe a month. This is going to actually be law before it can actually work itself through the court system.
The court system is a little bit bogged down right now because they haven't had, unless it's an emergency, they're not doing regular court, especially in Nashville, because that's worse there. Would that have any slowdown, do you think, on pausing on an injunction being signed by a judge?
It might, but at the same time, there would probably be an ask to expedite this case due that it deals with substantive due process claims. Like it's dealing with something that, you can't, that there's going to be additional harm caused the longer you wait type thing, right? Because that would be one of the strategies for pro-life people is like, well, just let it get bogged down in the court system. If it stays there for a year, now all of a sudden it's a year's worth of potential lives that we've saved. You get what I'm saying? You understand that, right? So I mean, I would think that the other side would make a claim like, no, we need to get this in front of people as quickly as possible because we're dealing with Supreme Court precedent stated substantive due process claims. Like, you can't take this away from me regardless of what you give back to me. So it has to go there right away.
Gotcha.
I say that, I'll just say, man, that
I just wanted to kind of give the viewers like an idea of like what is current law. Like, because you were saying like this is not going to work out or blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, it's going to pass and it's going to get signed by the governor. It just may not withhold a court challenge, but there may be a period of time where this is law. But anyway, those are my questions. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to throw it in the chat. We're keeping an eye on that. That's all the questions I had.
Those are great questions, man. It really is. And we tried it last year. I think the basic ask of pro-life groups in the state is essentially just this. Can we just kick it to the Supreme Court so we can have an opportunity to put this decision power back in the hands of Tennesseans? That's all that pro-life groups are asking. That's all that they want to ask is if we're going to waste money, taxpayer money, defending something, let's defend something that's inevitably bound to get to the Supreme Court so we can finally ask the question, should that decision be left with the state of Tennessee, or is it something that's taken out of the power out of the hands of the state of Tennessee? Hey, Shine, buddy. It is Juneteenth, by the way. I don't know how many people know about the Juneteenth thing. If you want to touch this, we can. If not, we can go to some meme review and make it a little bit lighter.
I think we should signal it without virtue signaling it. How about that?
Yeah, I was just going to play the clip and let them speak for it first. It's just like a quick history channel type thing as to just what actually happened, you know?
Play it.
Yeah, man. It's that clip right there in the national stories, Juneteenth story behind the 155-year-old holiday commemorates the end of slavery. Yeah, it started at 121. It should just automatically link to the 121 mark there. And the important part there before we get to Representative Jackson, probably about, 10, 15 seconds worth. Just want to give people an update. Yeah, go ahead and play that there from 121.
Juneteenth stands for June 19th, the day in 1865 when Union General Gordon Granger finally arrived in Galveston, Texas, to announce the emancipation of slaves. Texas had kept approximately 250,000 black people enslaved for 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation became law in 1863. And the man who signed it, President Abraham Lincoln, had been assassinated 2 months before Granger arrived.
Can you imagine? So what Juneteenth is, June 19th, is the acknowledgement and, yes, commemoration that there were slaves that lasted 2 more years. And for them, it was a lifetime.
Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson.
Hey, man, there you go. Juneteenth, June 19th. I think everyone's able to hear that pretty well. But man, like slaves looks, lasting in Texas for 2 years after Emancipation Proclamation. It's a 155-year-old holiday, commemorates the end of slavery. Just want to give people an update on that in case you haven't heard something about it, in case you didn't know what's going on with that and that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying, Sean? RealNewsRadio.live, by the way, RealNewsRadio.live. What do you want to do now, Sean? You want to go into some meme reviews or stuff, man? By the way, 615-807-0619, 615-807-0619. Open lines Friday. Anything y'all want to talk about, call in. Give me your opinion on any topic you want to talk about. We could lighten up, man, with a little bit of meme review stuff. Yeah, let's lighten up a little bit with some meme review stuff, man. Animal anime, buddy. Pull up the animal anime. That's one of my favorite photos out there. My sister actually sent this to me this morning. Any anime fans that we have in the audience right now, look at this, buddy. Cat knocking a dog into their. I love this. I absolutely love it. Plus, all the cat haters out there will have something to be hating on for sure. Oh man, hey, pull up the foosball dive one, buddy. Foosball dive. I think this is part of the reason why Americans just hate the game of soccer, because they would fully expect a European foosball table to look something like this as well. just a field full of Neymars just rolling around on the ground. Neymar, by the way, is a Brazilian soccer player that's notorious for his.
This is America. I don't know anything about soccer or Brazil, but it's good. It's a decent meme for sure.
Hey, here's one that we didn't get to the other day that it cut us off for doing, the anti-bad guy squad, man. I think this is basically the definition of Antifa for today. And it's become a major problem. My brother-in-law actually texted me the other day and said, hey, can you tell me why everyone is saying that Antifa is not a real thing, why it's not an organization, why it's not around? And I told him, I was like, yeah, well, it's essentially trying to normalize behavior that's coming out of that. If you can say that, like, they're just against all bad things. That's what Antifa means. It means anti-fascist. Like they're against Nazis. Nobody likes Nazis. So if you're against Antifa, Nazis. Then you're for Nazis.
Don't say Nazis.
Says we call ourselves the anti-bad guy squad. We label our opponents the bad guys. How can people not understand this? We can never be T-words because we're fighting the bad guys. It's so simple to understand. Everything we do is justified by our name. Here's another really interesting one as well. I think this is very relevant, man, for what's going on right now. The life is short. Make sure you argue.
Guy letting short, us know. Make sure you argue. Is that? I already like this meme just by the name of it. Hold on. Let's get the image up here. Life is short. Make sure you spend as much time as possible on the internet arguing with strangers about politics. That's beautiful.
That's exactly what's going on. And let's see, man. There's a few other here that are funny as well. I don't want to make Shine click on the TikTok one. I included that on my own just in case anybody wanted to go towards it. But Sean, I don't know, buddy. What are you thinking? We could do the Rashida Tlaib one. Rashida Tlaib has a take here. Just do this for me, buddy. Go to the Rashida Tlaib one, and I'll let people draw their own conclusions here. Rashida Tlaib, she put out a tweet a couple days back saying that facial recognition technology is racist, which the article she links perpetuates one of the most racist stereotypes in American history, or at least world history, as far as I'm concerned, but certainly American history, saying why facial recognition technology is racist. The whole thing sort of like devolves on top of itself. And this is a little bit of what I was talking about at the beginning of the show, where it's just people are having trouble figuring out what's going on. I think people are just becoming numb to it. They're becoming jaded by it. That's why I said before, Sean, I think I would prefer people to be uncomfortable. At least they're still listening. At least they're talking. At least they're still arguing. At least they're trying to figure something out. What we have yesterday, though, is some cancel culture stuff coming out of the University of Florida. And this is where I think we've hit sort of a note in American society of I don't know what you do from here. And even right now, as I'm bringing this up, I can already sort of feel the tension in the chat room. I can sort of feel the tension as I'm talking about this. I can feel the tension for about what we're about to discuss. Here's the story. University President Kent, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's last name. We're going to call him Foosh, because any other pronunciation may get us kicked for making it sound like something that's a bad word. So we're just going to call him Foosh. We'll call him President. University President of University of Florida said the change to no longer use gator bait cheer due to horrific racist imagery. He said that this change is one of many that the school was making to address racism on his campus amid ongoing protests following the death of George Floyd. This is his quote. While I know of no evidence of racism associated with the gator bait chant at University of Florida sporting events, there is horrific, historic racist imagery associated with that phrase. The university president said, according to university athletics, and the Gator band will now discontinue the use of this cheer. Now, traditionally, fans have shouted gator bait and used their arms to mimic a big, chomping mouth of an alligator. Now, according to Jim Crow, if you're wondering where they were getting this from, this is just reading directly off of CBS's website here. According to Jim Crow Museum of Racist Memorabilia at Ferris State University, African-American children were sometimes used to bait alligators in the 1800s and early 1900s. Now, here's where the story takes a different turn. And this is what's confusing people right now. And this is where it's starting to look like Babylon Bee is actually the most accurate news source that we have for today. Lawrence Wright is the guy who's credited with coining that term and popularizing it as it applies to University of Florida football. He was interviewed about this. He said in 1995 is when he coined this term, saying if you ain't a gator, you're gator bait, baby. He said this after a 1995 win and told the Gainesville Sun that he wants to speak with the university president about the decision. Wright planned to release merchandise with the phrase, according to the paper. Now, that's an important part of this story. Wright, Lawrence Wright, who coined the term gator bait, who played for the 1995 winning football team, he also had planned to release merchandise after copywriting it, to release merchandise with the phrase. Now, why am I stressing all of this stuff so much? Here's his next statement, quote, from Wright, quote, I'm not going for it. I created something for us. It's a college football thing. It's not a racist thing. It's about us, the Gator Nation, and I'm black. Lawrence Wright is an African-American football player. Lawrence Wright is a guy who won multiple awards. Best cornerback in the nation that year at the University of Florida. He says it's about us, the Gator Nation, and I'm black. He says, what about our history as the Gator Nation? We took a program from the top 5 to number 1 in the country. I think I've done enough, put in the sweat and tears to get to offer my opinion about something like this. The guy that coined the term. There was even word, like I said before, that Wright was going to copyright this and sell merchandise off it. It was his creation, after all, right? He's the one that popularized it. He's the one that coined it, made it applicable to the University of Florida. He's the one that got it to be associated with the Gator chant, the whole stuff, man. 87,000 people plus, all chanting that. That was his stuff. Here's another link on there for the Gainesville.com. Going on, quoting a little bit more from him. So the removal of the cheer was just one of a dozen actions by University of Florida president. as a part of a 3-point plan to address racism in the university. He also said the university would be removing monuments and names celebrating the Confederacy and would cease relying upon prisons and jail inmates for farm labor. Frankly speaking, all that last stuff is fantastic. Awesome. Progress, man. Absolutely progress. Removing names celebrating
No, the last part of that.
Removing, let's see,
you
jail
said something
inmates
about
jail
labor?
inmates from farm labor, yeah.
You know, I'm from Florida. I used to live in Central Florida, and I always thought it was cool that prisoners grew all their own food. I thought that was cool. I didn't think of that growing up as like this really negative thing. You could see them driving around. When I lived in Ocala, that's the way Marion County did it. There was huge, fields. I don't know. I thought it was cool. It didn't sound like a bad thing to me. It sounds better than making license plates. At least you get to eat it, Whatever they want to do. But this gator thing is stupid to me.
Before I go to the final part of this story here, by the way, let me hit some of these Facebook comments. Matt said 1871 when they enslaved all of us. Daniel said Antifa isn't an organization because it doesn't actually have an organization. Going back to that meme that we read before. Kelly says it's the American way. Being from Gainesville, she goes on to say, being from Gainesville is absolutely hilarious and ridiculous. The population is just about as much as the student population. That's exactly right. Shine and I, we were talking about this before the show. The first couple of football games that we ever had a chance to partake in was at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. I mean, that's why I'm a University of Florida fan still today, is because I have, the swamp, man. I have intimate memories of riding on my dad's shoulders and just seeing a sea of orange and blue going to these games, man. I mean, it's gonna be stuck with me forever. Daniel said in the Facebook, by the way, he says, I wonder if U of F wanted a slogan that they could profit from instead. So you see where the story's going here, all right? What we have now essentially is a story of a black football player creating a chant for his teammates. That black guy is then told by a bunch of white people that the chant is racist. And I have a major update for everybody. That is racist. A bunch of white people telling a black person what is racist is itself racist. It's high time now. We've come to the time in the point in time, in the scope, in the trajectory of all this stuff that's been happening over the last couple of months, that conservatives or whoever's going to do it is going to have to be willing to call truth for what the truth is and just be frankly willing to deal with the ramifications. Even putting that out there is a slightly scary thing to say, because that's where we are right now. Someone is going to have to be willing to call this stuff. And we've done it before, Shine. I mean, a couple months back, we pulled up this statistical analysis and the charts that were showing that white liberals were way higher than African Americans when it comes to whether they should have special, types of amenities made or something like this. And the idea was that white liberals were thinking that African Americans can't do anything without some sense of special handouts. We've used the charts, we've used the graphs, we've used everything, man. It doesn't matter. At this point, someone's just going to have to call it for what it is. A bunch of white people telling a black football player that a phrase is racist because he doesn't know any better is a racist thing that white people are doing. And all of a sudden, man, I stumble across a Babylon Bee headline that was written the day before this story came out. Like, dude, if you don't want to take my word for it, then fine. Take the word of a satire newspaper and understand that now satire is actually predicting real life. Frankly speaking, satire is becoming more accurate than real life. When that happens, you have crossed the Rubicon. We've entered into a phase that is not only it's not only weird for everybody else, it needs to be called out for what it is. Here's the Babylon Bee headline. Babylon Bee on June 17th. The story that we just got done reading was on June 18th. A day before the University of Florida story came out. New program helps people of color adopt a white liberal to speak on their behalf. Do you understand y'all understand what I'm saying now? You get this? You see how offensive this can eventually end up becoming? I don't know, Sean, but I mean, am I off here? Am I way off on this type of thing?
No, to me that's a very fair take on it. If the guy who came up with it's black and you're telling him that's racist, like, and talking down to him, like, oh, that's cute, you just didn't know. Well, let me, the white person, tell you how accidentally racist you really are. I think, that it's the implication. It's not explicit. It's not explicit yet, because they are very comfortable telling other people of other races explicitly, that's cute that you didn't know you were racist. Let me explain to you why you're racist. I think what's bothering me about it is it doesn't have anything to do with race. Like, that's what's so weird. It's like, did you know this salt lamp is racist? Because, I don't know why. You know, pick some stupid reason. Because someone said it was, you know. I think we need to start thinking of the people who see race everywhere as racists. So, like, let me give you an example. So let's say I'm a psychologist and I have this disturbed person in my office. And I say, okay, first thing we're going to do is a Rorschach test. And I hold up this piece of paper. And I'm like, okay, what do you see? Everyone know what a Rorschach test is? An ink blot test? Surely you've seen them in the movies. It's where you have weird shapes and they're trying to figure out what's going on in your head. So I hold it up and I say, what do you see? And you're like, racism. Okay, next picture, racism. Next picture, racism. Next picture, racism. I think if I was the psychologist, I'd look at him and say, you know, maybe the racism is in you and not in my ink blots. Maybe you have a problem with bigotry. Maybe you have a problem with racism. If you see it in places like a football cheer that doesn't mention color, was written and propagated by an African-American man who built up this institution, as he said, like, who cared about the Gators pre-1995? Nobody but the people who lived in Gainesville. Miami was, they weren't the team that we know of them today. He helped build up that program and was part of the group that did that with Warfel and all the rest. But I'm worried that it's gone from reasonable to psychotic. Like, there's been some reasonable things that have been pointed out that maybe should be thrown in history's wastebasket. But now it's some kind of weird arbitrary wand of power to wave over any institution that they don't like. And I imagine people who would call something that has nothing to do with race racist, like a cheer at the Florida Gator swamp, I bet they don't like football. I bet they don't like competition. They don't like winning and losing. They don't like masculinity. They don't like aggression. They don't like the main thing, winning and losing. I think people are going after institutions they don't like and calling them racist. Or they're just getting used to, making you used to dealing with them calling things racist that have nothing to do with race, so that you'll put up with more and more of it in the future as a way to throw more things in the waste bin of history. I'm all for having conversations about what we should hold up in our society, what should be our values. I'm all for that all day. But we can't do that if people are, every time you throw up a piece of paper, they say racist. You know what I'm saying? And to me, it's a little bit weird. I mean, like, to me, it's racist to say something that doesn't have anything. It's not even racial, which would mean it has to do with a particular race or something like that. It's not even racial, and they're calling it racist, saying it's bigotry. And that's weird to me, and I think is an indication of some kind of psychosis. Because, golly, how can a regular person live their life walking around thinking everything is racist without being an anxious mess? A mess. I mean, you'd have to be a mess of a person to walk around doing that. And I don't particularly trust messes of people.
Let me ask,
maybe they need a hug.
How much of this do you think is coming from sort of like the woke identitarianism, and how much of it do you think is coming from organizations, or in this case, a university that's just trying to say, like, capitalize on the situation? You get what I mean? Like, trying to earn some sort of like political favor, or trying to, I don't know, buddy. Man, who knows? Who knows? Trying to get ready for what's about to come. The Aunt Jemima stuff going on, right? That maybe that was just a thing of like recognizing market forces and trying to get out in front of them and make a statement so they could capitalize a little bit on what's going on. The point I'm making is, like, some of this stuff is so absurd that it clearly reeks of the idea that it has nothing to do with racism, like you just said. Like, it has nothing to do with a genuine concern for hurting anyone's feelings or perpetuating issues of racism. Because it has nothing to do with that, one might have to think, well, what does it have to do with then? Is it just University of Florida capitalizing this, or is there an actual band of woke identitarians out there somewhere that went to university leadership and said, hey, you know what we also found during all of our research, we also found that the Gatorade chant is super racist. Now, it doesn't matter that the black guy came up with it. It doesn't matter that the black guy was about to make money off of it either. None of that matters. I mean, I don't know, bro. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anybody was reporting on where this stuff came up from, but at the same time, it's exactly what you just said. There's a story down here from Spiked. Spiked, by the way, it's down underneath the section of the cancel culture alive and well. The headline says, in defense of colorblindness, and you can tell the word color has U in there. This is actually an article coming out of the UK. This individual makes the claim that woke identitarianism is an ideology that has accelerated over the past 10 years. It is strongly influenced by critical race theory, standpoint, epistemology, and intersectionality. The thread that underpins all these ideas is the notion that every aspect, every facet, every details of our lives, history, and culture are explicitly or implicitly complicit in racism. I'll read that statement one more time because I feel like it's nose on with what Shine just mentioned. The thread that underpins all of these ideas from this woke identitarianism is the notion that every aspect, every facet, every detail of our lives, history, and culture are explicitly or implicitly complicit in racism. You see racism in everything. According to this view, there are hierarchies of victimhood. Dave Chappelle has spoken a lot about this, sort of the Olympics of victimhood, as he calls it. There's hierarchies of victimhood in which the more claims to real or perceived victimhood status you have, the more authentic and morally superior you are. This is beyond virtue signaling now. It's a portion of virtue signaling because primarily most of it takes place online or on social media. But it's now, like we said about multiple other things, it's become a tradable commodity. You can almost cash in on some of this moral superiority. The more of it you have, the more followers you attain. The more followers you attain, the more you can actually project your voice and people will listen. The more people listen, you can actually start cashing in on that stance by becoming an influencer. So it does have a very real tie to economics. Getting back to the article, it says that this worldview rejects dialogue. This is my biggest fear. This worldview rejects dialogue between different groups of people, because different people can never truly understand each other's experiences. As James Lindsay, is the co-founder of New Discourse, has pointed out, many woke identitarians even argue that science, reason, and evidence are, quote, a white way of knowing, not right, white way of knowing. James, he rightly concludes that this hurts everybody, but especially hurts black people. It renders dialogue pointless. It denies that black people can be individuals with agency, and it denies that we can make any progress towards equality. The person that wrote this was an African-American female living in UK, by the way.
And that was echoed if anybody just saw the Joe Rogan with Brett Weinstein yesterday that just came out. He spent over an hour talking about from his position at Evergreen College, where these kind of riots over racially related things, one of the first places where that happened, like a couple years ago, he was warning everyone that this woke identitarianism wanted to take down science. That science...
Talking about STEM schools, right?
No, well, that's... STEM schools are... He means the scientific method.
Mm.
He means being able to prove things beyond a reasonable doubt separate from feelings. He was making a point that, like, science is this thing that gives us a glimpse past our normal filters and allows us to see things for what they really are. And he was saying, people are tired of that. They don't want you to be able to see the way things really are. And they want to be able to say, I feel this is the way this matter or wave or energy exists, and that's all there is to it. And don't you bring your science into it. That's the white way of thinking. And he can say it a lot better than I can. I encourage everybody to go watch the Brett Weinstein, Joe Rogan episode that came out yesterday. It was fantastic. But they did get on to, they want to get rid of STEM programs nationwide because of science and how science is this white way of thinking. And to me, that's so weird. I'm not here to build a temple to science or anything like that. But science has been a pretty good tool. Kind of like language is a good tool. It's a good tool to get things done. It's helped us, build a world where the blind can see and the lame can walk. We can fly, Science gave us flight. It's amazing. But anyway, that's a real thing. I just wanted to point out that's a real thing, and it's going even further than that article said it was.
And, man, this shutdown STEM thing is actually, I didn't even know what this shutdown STEM thing was. Sean, if you want to pull something up on the screen, just go to shutdownstem.com. My brother brought this up to me, and this is eventually what it's leading to. So going back to that quote from the previous article, just to let y'all know where I'm coming from, where my brother's coming from, when they say that sort of woke identitarianism argues that science, reason, and evidence are a white way of thinking, therefore we should not think that way. People in academia don't know what to do with that. A lot of people in America right now don't know what to do with any of this stuff. I mean, I think the fact that this has felt like somewhat of an uncomfortable show so far is because people just don't know what to do with truth anymore. And we used to be able to rely upon statistical data. It used to be the empiricists in the United States, those that would just rely upon empirical data and what you can see, the physical is all that we have type thing. At least they could say, hey, man, look at this data. This data proves something. Look at the scientific method. We've tried every other different version of a hypothetical out here, and none of it's worked. This one has worked, so that has to be the correct answer, right? The scientific method itself is what proves is and is not truth. That's apparently not even real anymore. That's not right anymore. Here's what the shutdown STEM thing says. In the wake of the most recent murders of black people in the United States, it is clear that white and other non-black people have to step up and do the work to eradicate anti-black racism. Yeah, man, 100%. Agree so far. As members of the global academic and STEM communities, we have an enormous ethical obligation to stop doing business as usual. No matter where we physically live, we impact and are impacted at this moment in history. Our responsibility starts with our role in society, in academia, other thoughts and words turn into new ways of knowing. Our research papers turn into media releases, books, and legislation that reinforce anti-black narratives. I still don't understand quite how yet, but let's roll with it for a second. In STEM, we create technologies that affect every part of our society and routinely weaponized against black people. I still don't quite understand that, but okay, you're at least telling me at some point that I guess, what is it, technologies that okay, at least we're getting closer to some sense of answer here, I guess. Black academia and black STEM professionals are hurting because they exist in and are attacked by institutional systemic racism. Black people have tirelessly worked for change alongside their indigenous and people of color allies. For black academics and STEM professionals, hashtag shutdown academia and shutdown STEM is a time to prioritize their needs, whether that is to rest, reflect, or to act without incurring additional cumulative disadvantage. So you hear like a lot of this ambiguous language, man. For a scientist, that doesn't mean much. For scientists, they don't know what to do with some of this stuff, man. And for scientists that are trying to come out and speak to some of the behavior that's going on in current culture right now, they are getting absolutely shut down and or fired. Back to what I was saying before. Part of the theme for today's show is you have to be able to speak truth and be okay with what the repercussions are. Think about it this way. Every time you look up, if you want to go to biblical with this, man, if you look up, in the Bible, if you do a word search for the word justice, it's always tied to truth. At this point, I do not think that conservatives would be looking for an equivalent to what the other side is offering right now. I don't think that's a game that we should be playing. I think that will only end in more controversy. That will only end in something bad. Maybe we just need to speak truth instead of keeping silent and not be scared of the repercussions. What am I talking about being scared of the repercussions? So we're talking about STEM a second ago. What happens when a scientist comes out and wants to make a statement on something? Here's this article again, New York Magazine's "This Still Vital Case for Liberalism in a Radical Age." It's just above that other article, Sean, that I was talking about before from Spiked. Still vital case for liberalism in a radical age. This is what happened to this scientist, David Shore. He's a 28-year-old political data analyst and a social democrat who actually worked for President Obama's re-election campaign. So we got the stage set, right? White guy, 28 years old, data analyst, super woke, works for President Obama, re-election campaign. He's in the world of science a little bit. He's an analyst, at least. He relies upon data in the traditional sense to prove or disprove one of his worldviews. On May 28th, Shore tweeted out a short summary of a paper by a Princeton professor, Omar Wassow. Now, Wassow, this is part of the story that may not be mentioned until later on. Wassow is a mixed individual. I believe he has an African-American father and a white mother. They may be mixed. Don't quote me on that, but I do know he's half black, half white. So the Princeton professor that put this out as mixed, a white guy, compiled this research by Wassow and analyzed the public opinion in the 1960s and found this whole thing. He wrote this. He tweeted this. When was this tweet coming out? On May 28th. It was right as we were in the midst of all these riots. Again, keep in the back of your mind what we're talking about with STEM. Keep in the back of your mind that data doesn't mean anything. Keep in the back of your mind the scientific analysis we cannot use anymore. And oddly enough, Republicans are called the ones that are anti-science. We have some of this stuff going on. Go figure that one. But truth has to be truth regardless of the repercussions. These are some of the repercussions. So David Shore comes out, analyzes this data, and says this. In the 1960s, he found that violent and nonviolent protest tactics actually had contradictory effects. He went on to say that post-MLK assassination riots, and again, this isn't even his data. He is breaking down somebody else's data. Guy worked for Obama. He said post-MLK assassination race riots reduced, not increased, but they reduced Democrat vote share in surrounding counties by 2%, which was enough to tip the 1968 election to Nixon. Conversely, nonviolent protests increased the Democratic vote, mainly by encouraging warm elite discussions and media coverage. Paints it in a different light as far as the media narrative is concerned. Basically, what the guy was saying is like, look, man, if we want to win elections, if you keep telling me this is how we're going to win the thing, if you just want us to get out there and vote, probably the way to do that is not to directly associate ourselves with violence. You can't even make that statement anymore. Let's say he just made that statement. That would be one thing. But if he comes out, a data analyst comes out and says, look, it's not even me making this statement. I'm just pointing you to another guy, a mixed guy, a Princeton professor, no less. And it's his data that's indicating this. At least pay attention to his data, man. It doesn't matter. Not only does science not matter, it doesn't matter who's delivering the science. And when I said before, everyone at this point has to be willing to come out and speak truth, and regardless, whatever the repercussions might be. This guy, story goes on to say, he lost his job. He lost his job. He had his job for about another day, and then later on, his job came back after a couple tweets brought it to his employer's attention. Someone on Facebook said, they repeated the accusation of racism, saying you need to stop using your anxiety and intellect as a vehicle for anti-blackness, and then tagged Dan Wagner as the CEO of Civics Analytics, the company that this guy worked for. He said, come get your boy. Well, they did. They surely enough came and got his boy. At least some employees and clients on Civics Analytics complained that Shore's tweets threatened their safety. A Princeton professor, a mixed Princeton professor's data is now threatening their safety. The next day, Shore apologized for his tweet, and the following day after that, Civics Analytics actually took up a review and fired him subsequently. This is the type of repercussions I'm talking about, man.
Science be praised.
Science be praised, right? Goodness gracious. But I mean, for real though, Sean, like, what do you do then if it's not science be praised? Because it's clearly not science be praised. It's whatever this other version of religion is.
Right. Yeah. Wokeism be praised.
Wokeism be praised, yeah.
Yes. Hey, it's what we've been saying. Like, it's not one thing versus another thing. It's not one group versus another group. That is some weird fake news. It's one ideology put up on a pedestal to the exclusion of all others. I mean, I can't be any more truthful. I'm talking about being truthful. That is the truth. And that extends to science. That extends to data. That extends to anything you think you could use as a way to critique this idea that's up on the pedestal. You can't use religion to critique it. You can't use its own words, its own actions to critique it. You can't do that either, because who the hell are you? You're not a priest. You're not a man of the wokeism cloth, so to speak. And you can't use science. No. If you can't use their own words, of course you can't use science. So you can't use government, right? All the institutions we've ever relied on to be the referee, so to speak, the referees are losing their power. The referees are getting kicked out of the ring. And that's tough.
Yeah.
But it is not because everyone is feeling like their group is specifically getting downplayed in reference to wokeism, okay?
Right.
Is that making the point a little bit easier? It's not a slight, and it's not personal against you personally. I'm talking to you. You out there watching, no matter when you watch this, a year from now, today, right now, it's not a personal slight against you. It's the elevation of this particular ideology. And the only way to be elevated with it is to go along with it, even though you run the threat of being discarded at any time and being thrown off the pedestal. Especially if you being discarded can help the movement go forward, right? But that is kind of an accurate, in my opinion, depiction of what's going on. Science is in the same place as religion as compared to this new ideology, whatever, cult. I like calling it a cult. I don't mind doing it because it doesn't make any sense. They repeat things. They don't let dissent enter their ranks. They do the craziest weird stuff like call a gator bait chant racist. That's something invented by a black guy. A very successful, awesome, one of my favorite football players, African Americans, And that's, I don't know, it's just a weird time, man. It's a weird time because I thought we were trying to make science more honest. Right. I used to get annoyed that science, I love that joke. It's a South Park joke, by the way. Science be praised.
Science be praised.
That's a joke, okay? Yeah. For a while, I was mad at science because they were telling me how to feel in areas that didn't have anything to do with their areas of expertise.
Right.
But they're in the same spot as the Florida Gators. So that maybe makes it make a little more sense. Science is no more elevated than the University of Florida, than McDonald's, than, you get what I'm saying? Like, they were in this elevated position, but now they're, who cares? People are saying get rid of STEM? When STEM was basically created to be like another kind of magnet school, so people who went to schools that were failing could go and you know who I'm talking about when I say kids, right? Lower income, social, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People who needed the help, who needed to go to schools where they could get opportunities. White kids too, but mostly poor people who were in schools that were failing. It gave them an opportunity to go to a different school and get some opportunities, go to a college, maybe be like the president of the United States or something. To remove barriers. That's what STEM is. It's like an arts magnet school, except they do science and math. But man, any of these things, if they're not specifically a part of the identitarianism, wokeism cult, then they get thrown by the wayside. And that's the world we're living in. It's not this group versus your group. It's not you personally everything's under attack. So that's what it is.
Matt says in Facebook, by the way, psychopathy. Matt goes on to say that these people are so vacated, they'll fall for anything. Mass psychopathy. Kelly says, wait, science is white? OMG. Kelly says, their safety, question mark, so they feel unsafe because of facts and data. Kelly said, so then where do we go from here? If science is racist and facts make someone feel unsafe, then what? I don't know, man. I think you have to go back to a situation where, like I said before, I do not think that the people on the right or anybody that disagrees with this, frankly, this right-left comparison is probably too divisive in and of itself. Shine, you're exactly right there. Just people that disagree with what's going on right now. A lot of those are probably encamped on the left, man. I've seen a lot of folks on the left the last couple of days come up to sort of this weird realization of just like, let me post this thing out here because I disagree with something's being said. And then the first comment under this first thing that I posted is like, nope, you're wrong. And you're both in the same camp. What do you do then, man? What do you do when you have an entire friend group, when you have an entire group of people that you associate with, that you hang out with, you go to bars with, you have fun with, some of them are your family members as well. And you didn't initially encamp yourself with this particular group due to their political beliefs, because maybe you were apolitical for a while as well. But now all of a sudden, everybody's becoming politically woke, or at least just woke in general. And now you all of a sudden have to be able to catch up with them and abide by all this other nonsense of political stuff. And when you voice your opinion, you do one of two things. You either stay and abide by truth and be alone, or you give up on what you think to be true so you can remain with your friends, man. It's a very difficult thing that we're asking people to do. And I'm telling you, I do think that some of this stuff is probably going to take care of itself, and I don't know if I like the idea. Shine, if you could pull up Tim Pool's Twitter account. This literally just came up on my screen. He tweeted this about 2 hours ago, so it should be one of the first things out there. It's about the third tweet down. It says, Trump could not pay for an ad this perfect. Trump could not pay for an ad this perfect, saying these people are insane. Apparently protesters in North Portland. Now, again, granted, it is Portland, so it's kind of the mecca of you will, but nevertheless, it's America. Protesters in North Portland have pulled down a statue of George Washington. So again, I pause it one more time. Dude, if George Washington doesn't meet the standard, can I seriously ask who does? And I think that's kind of the point of what's going on here. So do you understand now why I'm saying like this is a very dehumanizing worldview? This woke identitarianism focuses not on you, the individual, but it focuses on your mark, on your stance, what you identify as, but not you. It focuses on the identity. It doesn't focus on you. It focuses on what you identify as. So you are not John. You are an African-American male. You are not Susie. You are a lesbian female. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not about you or your name. Your name is replaced as they are with numbers in the prison system. They're replaced with your identifying tag. That is the factor. And when that happens, you have some of this super dehumanizing stuff where it's like, I'm pulling out a statue of George Washington. Dude, I don't know. I don't know. Who then meets the mark? Outside of Christ himself, who then meets the mark? I told y'all the story about MLK. We did that yesterday, 2 days ago. We got kicked off for it. Was it yesterday? I don't know. The story's in the show notes, by the way, if you guys want to follow along. How much longer will MLK statue stand? Bro, like this is going to turn back on themselves at some point, is it not? There's another story in here, too. Another Tim Pool video. University of Florida. I mean, not University of Florida, but Berkeley now is apparently renaming Washington and Jefferson schools after Black Lives Matter push. And this isn't a thing about racing history. It's not a thing. To me, it's more importantly about a thing of like, so what is the standard? Where is that mark? In a system where there is no such thing as forgiveness, in a system where there is no sacrificial atonement, in a system where you cannot progress because you cannot learn from the sins of your past, who is infallible? Who is the left's version of Christ? You know what I'm saying? Who is the left's version of that person or that thing that can come in and say, here's the mark, here's what we all must attain, here's the meta version of goodness? There is no version of that in the left. There's not. You are constantly pointing to, it's not even a moving target. There's just no target. You don't know what you're supposed to hit. So you feel like you're constantly progressing towards something, but you're actually going nowhere. You may actually be going backwards, but how would you know? How would you know? You don't know because no one has a mark. There's no reference point that we can all agree upon that, like, we're going to take down all this other stuff, man. Doesn't matter as founding fathers or otherwise. Doesn't matter who we're taking down at that point. It's just for right now, for today, as long as it fits our baseline definition of what we think is good and not good or whatever else, then it's okay. But give it another 10 to 15 years from now and possibly MLK's alleged homophobia, we might have to take him down as well, too. Now, what are you standing for? What are you standing for now? I would usually end that little rant by saying, like, I don't know, maybe I'm going too far here, help me back. But no, dude, I'm probably not even going far enough right now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you're not going far enough, but there's nowhere else to go. You know, the purpose is not to say, here's the ideal person, meet this. That's not the purpose, in my opinion. Otherwise,
yes. No, you're right. Yes.
Otherwise, everyone would actually be trying to become that person. But and this is something weird that I know from advertising. If you don't give people something exactly to imagine, you're giving them the space to imagine it themselves, right? So by not putting out a real example and saying, here's the standard, that gives them opportunities for power. Because as people imagine what the standard is and try to meet it, they're like that Kung Fu Panda thing, you're being destroyed on the road to avoid being destroyed. So as people are trying to reshape and reform who they are, at least in presentation, to avoid being destroyed by the mob, they're becoming the thing that will be called out next by the mob. Does that make sense, Grant?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
In the grasping of straws, you will only create more things that allow them to come after you. And that's an advertising technique. You don't tell people everything. You let their imaginations work. Let them fill in the blanks. That's what they're doing. And it's a way to maintain power. It's a way to, like, keep the ball away from you. You can't have the ball. They have the ball. They're the ones with the ball. And they've set up rules where they're the only ones allowed to have it. And that's weird, man. But I really feel like we should end the show, if we can, try to end it on something positive. Is there any, well, we can reemphasize again, probably, how great some of the stuff that passed in the Tennessee House and Senate was. Great end to the Tennessee legislative session. I don't know, but whatever you want to do, Grant, before we end the show.
I mean, this is going to be a weird way to end it, but let me end it with that DACA story, dude, which sounds like it's another loss for Republicans, but I promise you it's not, man. And this is probably going to be a weird way to end it, but this should actually be a slight marginal win for some people in spite of the fact that it was a bad legal decision. And I say that just because, like, you know, Trump didn't care. about DACA. I think we've all, but Republicans have convinced themselves that DACA is something that we should be concerned about. I don't think we even need to play the YouTube clip. It's just something I want to hit before the end of the show here. We all know the decision came down from the Supreme Court yesterday that DACA is a big win for Dreamers. That's the NBC headline. Now, some of the people that I saw yesterday saw this post saying that, like, Justice Roberts and the Supreme Court of the United States went off the rail again about judicial power, this time holding the executive branch can only end an unlawful federal program, DACA, if it agrees with the executive branch's reason for doing so. How bizarre, this person says. Create a program by executive branch memorandum without congressional authorization and make the next administration justify ending the Supreme Court's to the Supreme Court's satisfaction. Now, what the decision basically was yesterday was essentially John Roberts siding with the 4 liberal justices and saying, look, this was put in by President Obama's executive power. You, President Trump, technically have the executive power to take it out. We just don't like your reasoning for doing so. That's basically what the decision was. It just wasn't a clear enough, articulable enough reason for doing so. Justice Thomas in his dissent said today's decision must be recognized for what it is, an effort to avoid a politically controversial but legally correct decision. The Trump administration rescinded DACA the same way the Obama administration created it, unilaterally and through a mere memorandum. The solution respondents seek must come from the legislative branch. And this is why I'm saying, Sean, I know this doesn't sound like ending on a good note, but I do want to end it this way on a good note just to say that Republicans, we never cared about this. Frankly speaking, we all thought this was a fantastic program as well just 2 years back. Come back with me. Come back to reality with me. Don't see this as a loss. Don't let the media spin you up and spool you up into seeing something that is an actual loss when it's not a loss. Frankly speaking, I don't care what statues remain around, bro. I don't care if it's George Washington or Thomas Jefferson or anything. It doesn't do anything to me personally. What does do something to me is all the other alternate reasons we spoke about what's going on with these statues. If you want to do it right, man. Convince your fellow man. Cement it in stone. Remove it through the proper channels. And move it to a, I don't know, wherever. Some monument or something, man. Make a point out of it. Bring reality back. Bring your fellow man back into reality as well. Once you've exited the cave, you have an obligation or duty to go back into that cave and bring people back with you. DACA. No one used to care about this. 2 years back, Republicans. We thought this was a fantastic program as well. Frankly speaking, we probably said it probably shouldn't have been done through executive order. That's the problem we had with it. So get the legislature on there. Now, to the legislature's credit, they have tried to do something with it 12 different times. But the reason why we're here today, and the reason why I'm asking everyone to come back with me 2 to 3 years ago, is because this stuff was only passed because we were using DACA, Trump was using DACA as a leverage point to get funding for the border wall. It had nothing to do with DACA. Trump's statements about this Deferred Action something act, or I forget what it was, the Dreamers, whatever it is. The reason why 2 years back, he made statements on this thing like, I love the Dreamers. They're fantastic. They've known no other home. All this stuff that is true, they don't even speak other languages. They've been here their entire lives. Dude, out of the 600, 700,000, I think something like 1,800 of them, and maybe 8,000. I don't remember the number. A decent number of them actually serve in the American Army. Bro, if you're going to go serve in the American Army, I'm not doing that. I will say right now, you are arguably way more of an American than I would ever even hope to be by serving in the American Army. Hands down. The amount of sacrifice and commitment it takes to do something like that, I'm not doing that. So if you're going to do that, by all means, go off and do that. Come back to reality with me. These people are Americans. Trump said as much. Republicans agreed as much. Do not see this as a loss. See this as the Supreme Court and the final statement here that Justice Thomas says. The solution respondents seek must come from the legislative branch. That's Justice Thomas's statement. The solution respondents seek must come from the legislative branch. I know it's a weird way to try and end on a high note and a positive note, but I do want to end on something positive and optimistic to say, like, man, look, it's the media, man. It's getting us crazy. It's making us crazy. Take a pause on it for a minute. Come back. Re-enter rationality. The solutions that respondents speak must come from the legislative branch. This is, in some sense, the Supreme Court saying, like, you know what, man, we're going to put this back on the legislature one more time. We're going to take this hand out of the power of the executive, what you guys originally wanted. So this is actually, if you think about it in some particular way, this is actually a win for Republicans. The whole point of this to begin with was to kick it back to the legislature. For people that supported DACA, the whole point of this to begin with is to kick it back to the legislature to make sure that it's cemented and done properly and taken out of the hands of the executive branch. And again, keep in mind, man, like, this is what we've wanted. This is what everybody's wanted. This is what everybody agreed upon. Don't focus so much on the division. Hi, my name is Mr. Henry. David Sean Thompson, signing off for today. We'll be back on Monday.
Real quick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Real
right.
News will be live again, but with a different show. The Veteran Next Door coming on in 1 hour. All you really hardcore fans who've made it through this whole hour of the Real News Morning Show, do me a favor, check in with it for a little bit and at least throw me up a like up there for Mr. Baxter. He's a big fan of Real News. He's one of us, and he wants to share his stories of history about like real veterans from the East Tennessee and also Kentucky and Northern Georgia and stuff like that. But people around you who've given real sacrifice to real institutions. You know what I mean? They're good stories. So check it out. Throw us up a like. It's going to be a lot of fun. I really think this audience is going to enjoy it. That's coming up at noon today in less than an hour. So look forward to that. Mr. Henry, go ahead and sign us off here, buddy.
There you go, man. We're signing off for the weekend. We'll be back on Monday, doing it real big for y'all. Major updates coming on Monday for the bills that passed this legislative session, and we're setting up some interviews for y'all. Hey, hit us up in the comments section of this page, or just send us a direct message on the Real News page. Let us know which legislators you would like to hear from, and about which topics you may want to hear as well. Depending on that, we may do it exclusively Real News. We may run it through you.
You've never heard it before. Stories of real veterans, told by the veterans themselves, and hosted by Knoxville resident Randy Baxter. Tune in this Friday at 12 p.m. for The Veteran Next Door on Real News Radio, broadcasting from realnewsradio.live.